everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Against All Odds. And as I say at the beginning of every podcast, it's a purely selfish reason why I film this, because I like to speak to inspirational people. And today I am so excited to welcome Charlotte de Curtis to the stage. How are you, my lovely?
I'm good, thank you. Are you?
Yes, I'm really, really good. How long have I known you now? I was thinking about it earlier. It's got to be about 4 years.
Yeah, because I think we met through Paul Moore. So
Yeah,
was like 2020, wasn't it? So I think we've like toed and froed, haven't we?
yeah,
And walking here and there. It'll be about about 4 years. We've been
4 years.
as well, haven't we? We've definitely met in person.
Yeah. Blimey. Seems a lifetime ago. Well, I got you on because you inspire me with how you help women. And the first question I ask anybody that comes on the podcast is, you normally have a big reason why you do what you do. What is your big why?
I think for me, the big why is I spent in my early years like a lot of time on diets, in being in my own head, in being in like fitness model shape, and still like nothing was ever good enough.
Right.
So despite like what levels I got to, I'd done like a bikini show like 2 months after having a baby at one point. And I think throughout all of that and all of that journey, and I think coaching the women that I coach as well, and seeing like, especially in like my early days, you can force body fat off anybody, but you've still got to take, and I know you're a massive advocate of this, you've still got to take your own head with you. And I
Mm.
think regardless of how much body fat you strip off, and I think it is given to us from a very young age, especially as women, that, you know, taking up less space in the world in shrinking yourself in all kinds of different ways is something that's going to bring you everything that you want in your life. And if I can just lose the weight, then this will happen. And it's really not. And I think for myself personally, I think on like a personal journey, also seeing myself take women through that process, especially like I say in the early days of just being what I would call a burpees and broccoli personal trainer, because that's what
Yeah.
I originally started as, like almost, it's going to make me sound well old, about 20 years ago nearly. And the evolution of that is like, we need so much more than that. So
Yeah.
that's my why really. And I think obviously generational stuff, if you want to put it in that category of like, we've got children now who are coming through this same process, who have so much like social media. So the kind of women that I work with quite often are mums who are trying to, you know, not take their daughters and even like the sons through the same cycle and don't really know what to do with it because they're still trying to deal with their own stuff. So my why goes a little bit further than just my own stuff, or like even that of clients. It's like the next generation as well, and like how we help heal and solve all this stuff for them as well.
I love that because you mentioned it's a mindset thing as well, because you normally find as well, and I don't know whether it's more women or men. Maybe you'd be able to shed some light on that, but it's like yo-yo dieting. So they get so far, and even though they're doing well, they'll still beat themselves up. And I don't like the saying "fall off the wagon" because you don't fall; it's a choice. But then they go back to square one, and it's like a loop. And I truly believe it is a mindset problem when that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that really springs to mind for me was I had a client about, it's all over 10 years ago, and she did amazingly well. She was like stuck in these cycles of dieting, like losing a bit of weight and then piling it back on again, like the majority of women that I work with, like that have been in these. And it is quite often, it's a mindset thing, because we feel like our self-worth quite often is tied so much into discipline, and like, I need to be this disciplined, otherwise it's not good enough, and all of the things that come with it. But I had this particular client who, we got her into great, again, this is back in like burpees and broccoli days, just please
I
keep
love
this
that
in.
burpees and broccoli.
No, you can imagine though, can't you? Like the kind of, I think I can think, oh God, what a knobhead I were at the time. But you live and learn, you live and
You
learn.
do, yeah.
So I had this particular client and got like great shape, not just for her age, because she was, I think she was about 51 at the time. She was just in great shape in general. And she'd done amazingly well. She'd like come out of all of these cycles. She was dead like disciplined, which was like the thing at the time, like gotta line your broccoli and chicken up in your Tupperware. And that's like where your moral value, like, you know, all the stuff that we do to ourselves. And she was dead chuffed with her transformation and all of that. And I just remember her coming into the gym one day and bursting into tears. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And she turned around and she said, I still feel like the fat bird. Like that was her terminology for
Yeah.
what she was experiencing. And I didn't really understand it at first until we started talking about it. And then it came up as we were sort of delving into this. And like, 'cause I was in complete shock. I was like, what is going on? We've just had this amazing transformation. You've worked really hard. You've come out the other end of it, so disciplined and all of that stuff. And as we delved into it, it was like, it was such an identity level thing. And this was such a turning point in the way that I coached women and the way that I even, ran the business that I had and that I have now. It was such a turning point because despite all of that, still at an identity level, she'd struggled with the weight for such a long time. She'd been called, a number of things by an ex-husband. There were so many intricate things that had gone on that had built this identity that she thought all these other things, this discipline and this transformation, and if I can just get to X, Y, Z, whatever that were, was going to solve all of these things. And it hadn't. You've still got to take your own head with you. And there's so many things to like unpack and unpick. So again, for me, that was such a turning point in how I coached women like that. Absolutely. Do you know when you just have like something, I call it like a Black Mirror moment. I don't know if you've watched Black Mirror, but there's
I have, yeah.
I've seen the one where there's an episode and there's a painting above a bed, and it's like he sees that painting. Can't remember the intricacies of the rest of the episode. He sees that painting and it like everything falls into place for him, and he thinks, oh my God, and then he connects all these dots. And I think for me, that was like my Black Mirror moment of like,
Yeah.
I can't carry on. I felt like I had total moral purpose in not just stripping body fat off people and like, yes, this is what we do. This is going to solve all the, because I naively at the time, very much in myself as well, thought that was the case, like, well, all we've got to do is this. So it was a real like turnaround, a real Black Mirror moment in terms of
Yeah.
the off the wagon thing. There's so much more to it than that.
Yeah. Yeah, because those kind of, it's like limiting beliefs, isn't it? And lack of confidence and things like that. And I know you sent me a list of things that we could talk about, and you included like self-love in there.
Yeah.
Because I think women have a real problem with the self-love thing and the confidence and things like that. So talk to me about self-love.
So I like define this a little bit differently. I'm not a massive fan of like what I would call wanky self-love.
Yeah.
Like the I just love and the Instagram sort of stuff, and like be kind to yourself. Like I do agree with it to a certain extent, and I don't know if you feel like this, but I think sometimes it can be a bit of a toxic situation that you're putting yourself in, where you're like letting yourself off the hook a little bit. And I don't think it's just about bubble baths and face masks and like relaxing. I think sometimes it's holding yourself to a certain standard, like unpacking and unpicking certain things, but like holding yourself to a certain standard and knowing what it is that you want out of your life, the people that you want in your life, the people that you want around you, like what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're not willing. I just think we look at it in, I don't want to say wrong, but I don't think we always get it right when we're talking about self-love. Like, I don't know if you agree with that, but that's
Absolutely. Yeah. You see, I think self-love's great. You've got to be kind to yourself, but also we also have points that aren't so great, and you've got to be accepting of that as well, and kind of knowing where you need to improve.
Yeah. And I think even down to like taking yourself out of situations or scenarios that just are not, like they're not serving you, or it's something like when deep down, like as much as you might, and I do think this, I've been in situations like this myself where you've really wanted something to work, for example, but that there's just things within that situation. And I think you can apply that to anything. I think you can apply it to relationships, I think you can apply it to work. I think you can apply it to opportunities that come your way, where you have to take yourself out of it from a place of self-love, even when there's part of you that doesn't want to. So I do think that we look at self-love in a really like weird, well, through like a really weird lens. And I don't know if that's like like the evolution of Instagram and social media and all of that kind of stuff, but even like being disciplined with your training to an extent, but knowing where your boundaries are and knowing what that needs to look like for you, I think is part of self-love as well. Because I think it's all well and good slaughtering yourself into the ground from a place of punishment. And going
Yeah.
back to what we were talking about before, like there's a massive difference in nourishing your body and doing it from a place that feels good and healthy and keeping yourself well and doing shit that you just don't want to do. Like sometimes that's being kind to yourself, sometimes that's self-love.
Yeah. It's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's individual as well. Do you think that? I think it's very individual per person, and
Yeah.
depending where you are in your life as well, or like what stage in your life you're at. Because I've experienced this personally, and I have clients who go through this all of the time. He's like, if you have been like a 22-year-old who's been able to smash the gym and you've got all this time in the world to be making your smoothies and doing all this stuff, and and now you are in your late 30s, for example, you've got a family, you've got a different job, you've got different commitments and all of that, that self-love's going to look very different to you at 39 as it is to 22. It's a different stage of life. But I think what we do sometimes as well is cling on to past versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know the things that you talk about, you'll probably like agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think again, like the self-love thing, like you've got to let some of them versions of yourself go, or like be open to doing things differently. And I do think that's quite hard to recognize sometimes, when you're trying to do it by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where resentment can come into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Massively. I see a lot of people in exactly the same situation that you've like explained, that were like, yeah, well, 10 years ago I was able to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And it's like they get resentment about time, their energy, and it's like they can't recognize that they're in a different space in their life now, and they need to be a different version of them.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know what's really funny? I've written a post today as well about which will sound a little bit odd, but it is relevant if you get a chance to read it. It's about partner resentment, and it's almost like there's that element of resenting yourself and your situation, but also like who you are in your relationship as well. At different like times, you might not be able to do certain things anymore in the way that you've been able to do them before, freedom wise and all of that. And I know when I coach a lot of mums, that is a really, really big part that I think we don't even think about, that resentment piece of resentment of, maybe it's partner resentment, maybe it's self-resentment, maybe it's time, situational, work resentment. But I think it's definitely worth checking in with. And I know the work that you do is massive around, identity and mindset and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I know you said that you work with a lot of mums. Now, us ladies, admittedly, we have a lot to deal with. It's like we wear different hats. It's like that's how I describe it. So we've got our own hat where we have to look after ourselves, be the best version of us. Then we're probably, with somebody. Then we've got kids. Then probably got a job. Then we have to clean the house. We have to do this, this, and this, and this. But you might normally find that looking after us and our health comes at the bottom of that pile of hats. It's the last thing we do. Do you see a lot of that?
Oh, massively so. Honestly, the amount of conversations, because what I tend to do when I start working with a client is I get them on a call to make sure that they're a good fit for what it is that I do specifically. And the amount of times that I've had conversations with people who, and it's usually mums, it's usually or very like career driven women who value, what would we call it? I can't think of the actual word. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but they very much value like career and achieving and striving for more. So it tends to be like those are the kinds of women that I work with, and obviously must be drawn to me. What was the question, Amy? I forgot what the question were.
About looking after us. We're at the bottom of the pile.
Yes, yes, got there in the end. So yeah, they do tend to be right at the bottom of the pile. And the conversations that I've had where I'm like, okay, and then what do you do? It's like everybody else comes first. And even sometimes it's like, and then I walk, you know, the dog, I sort the dog out. And it's like, you're even putting, like, we love our dogs, we all love our dogs, but it's like every single person in your life, you're giving so much of yourself to. And it's almost like that. I know it's really age-old analogy, isn't it? Of like, oh, your cup is only half full, but it's like you're depleting this cup further and further down, and you're treating yourself like a 2 and expecting to get a 10 out of it, and then like we're baffled why we don't, when we're giving so much of ourselves to everybody else. And I think something that I like get my clients to live and die by, which is quite controversial, is almost like, especially if you've got kids, it's like your kids aren't the ones who need to come first. And not everybody will agree with this, but if you feel like shit, they're not going to get the best version of you. No one's going to get, like, your partner's going to get the shittest version of you. Your kids are going to get the shittest version of you. You know, you can't show up if you run a business or you've got staff at work. Like, how do we expect, and I've experienced this myself, you know, how do we expect that we are going to show up as any better version of ourselves for anyone when we're so depleted? You know, we don't feel healthy. We're not like working out. We don't have like these hobbies that really drive us and are a big part of us. And the amount of women that I work with who come to me and they say, I just want to feel like myself again. They have no idea how to get started and they have no idea how to do it. But the biggest thing is because you've got nothing of yourself left. Like there's nothing there.
Do you ever find, you know, when you say like, who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? Do you find many people that can't answer you?
Yeah.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
It goes either way. So either I have a lot of clients who they know how they want to feel because they've previously felt like that and they're like, I want to get back to my old self. I get that quite a lot. Like they've had an energy level at one time in their life that they know they want to get back to. Especially this happens quite a lot with, and I don't know if you'll resonate with this, I have a lot of clients who have been quite high achievers and they've, you know, been at a stage in their life where health has been really important to them, the gym, training, you know, whatever that looks like. And then they've had a big life change. So they've either had children or they've changed career. And it's like they don't know what to do out of the back of it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I notice is when people are saying like, I don't know what this looks like going forwards, or I want to get to my old self. Like I've had a bit of both, which is interesting. Do you get a lot of that with the women that you work with?
Yeah, so it tends to be from a life change. So it could be separation or like say job change or you know anything that's quite a big change in life. I mean it throws people, doesn't it? Because we quite happily go along in routine and humans don't really adapt that well to change, even though we don't like to admit it, you know, like we're not like yeah it's fine yeah. But in reality it's the brain gets very confused and it's like and then gets overwhelmed because the thing I find again men could have this problem as well, but women, like I say, all those hats that we have to wear, a lot of women, including me at one point, get overwhelmed with we have all these responsibilities and not enough time. So it's like overwhelm, massive overwhelm. So do you get that as well, where you've gone, well, I should have gone to the gym, but you know, I've been running around and doing this and this cropped up and then I've not had time.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think it's just spinning all of the plates. But I think what I try and get my clients to do right from the beginning, and again, this is something that I've experienced massively. So it's like when you are spinning all of these plates, some of these plates, we don't even have to necessarily be spinning, but it's like we feel like we've got to. And I don't know whether that's and I know for some people it is like it's the external pressure. It's like people not doing the job as well as you would do. It's like relinquishing some of that. So whether that's like kids, it's your home, it's your you know, and what I try and get my clients to do is delegate as much as possible. Like there are things that we can let go of, we just daren't. And I don't know, like for some people I think that again is just a control thing, but then I think for other people they're a bit like scared to do it as well. It's like, but I have to do this because this is my job and this is my, like, this is what I'm supposed to
Yeah,
do.
do you know what?
I
I
don't do that.
think that's a society thing as well, because you
Yeah,
can go on Instagram and Facebook and you can see women that seem to be just doing it all, looking amazing, not even breaking a sweat. You know,
yeah,
then they're still having time to make the smoothies. Like they've still
yeah,
got the same energy as 10 years ago. So I
yeah.
think it's a society putting pressure on that we should be able to manage all these things and have energy and just be the best version of ourselves. And that's considered like the new normal, but that's not
Yeah.
normal.
No, it's a lot, isn't it? I remember this again, another like pinnacle career moment, pinnacle like coaching changing moment. I had two clients who both were mums, and one of them had two, what did she have? One, I think she might have had one at the time. I think she had one little boy at the time, and then I had another client who had five children. I think one of them was six and the rest of them were like under six. Absolutely blew my mind. Like, how are you dealing with that many children?
Mm.
And she was in like the under six, great shape, managing everything like a boss, all of this stuff. And I had another client again who had one little boy, and I remember her coming in and they were like crossover in the gym. And I remember my client with the one little boy was like, oh my God, she proper makes me feel like shit because I cannot, how is she doing that? And she wasn't saying it from a bad place, but it was like, I can't even handle one child.
Mm.
And it was like, she didn't know. And I think this is very relevant for all of us. Like, we don't know what's going on for anyone else. So this particular client with the five children, I'm trying to think of her names, we'll call her Rebecca. Now, Rebecca was in a really great financial position where she didn't have to work. She had a massive family. So it was like, you know, when people talk about having a village and
Yeah.
it takes a village to raise your kids, she had a massive village. She had a city going on.
Yeah.
But you didn't see that from it. So if she wanted to come to the gym, she was in a great financial position where she could have personal training. She really looked after herself. She, you know, had like all the Botox done and all that. She was very like glam mummy. She was great. So, but then my other client like had no idea about all of that. And she was very much someone who, her husband was a farmer. She was taking full responsibility. Her parents lived a million miles away. It was a totally different situation. And I think it's so easy to look on whether that's Instagram or look at someone else's life and go, why am I so shit? Because I
Well,
experience, and it's not that it is.
yeah. And that's it then. That's a big knock for your confidence.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. And again, that was that real pinnacle moment of like, oh my God. And I think sometimes we're very good at looking at other people and going, but they're managing this and they're handling this really well and they're doing it. And we have no idea what's going on for them. So I think contextual, like it's so important. And again, like with my clients, it's so important to be laser focused on what you can do right now, because it might not be what they can do. You might be able to do that in 2 years time, in 6 months time, or maybe you don't ever want to do that, but it's just got to be so contextual of like, right, stay in your lane and be focused on your own shit, because if
Yeah.
not, it just ends up being this spiral of you never feel like you're good enough when you compare. And I know it's that age old thing, isn't it, of comparison is the thief of joy and all those quotes, but
Yeah.
it is true. Like if you're comparing yourself to somebody else, you don't know what's going on for him.
Yeah. And I also think as well, at times you can use that comparison to kind of push you on a little bit. It's like, right, what little step can I do to
Yeah,
get just a little bit of the way there?
yeah,
Because I think when you start suffering low confidence, that's when the fear sets in. So you're more likely not to start anything out of fear, because, you know, that's like you're standing at the bottom of Snowdon
yeah.
and you're going to climb it in bikini and flip flops. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I told you about that.
Yeah, I just think comparison is massive with women. I think social media, it, I say a lot of good things with social media, but
Yeah.
I think if you are feeling a bit shit about your situation and you're looking at everybody else with that seems to have the perfect life, it's just going to make you feel worse.
Yeah, 100%. I do think there's something that, like you just said, about the comparison situation. When you do it in the right way, I just think a lot of us don't do that. Like, I think there's a lot in putting yourself, and I know that you will probably nod along with this because we have done this in the past, being in like certain groups or like mentorships and things like that. I think when you put yourself in the right situations, in the right groups of people, around the right groups of people and peers and whatever that you know, whatever that looks like, whether that's like a coaching group, like I know all my ladies, we're very of the same mentality, and we're very like have a very similar outlook. We're very like high achievers, but also are very real about life and what we want and what we want out of it. And it's such a, I'm trying not to sound dead cheesy when I say this, but it's such like a magical place to be, because I think when you're around like-minded people, it just, you can still compare yourself to other people. And this is what I find a lot with the ladies that I coach, but it's very inspiring. It's not like, you know, some 22-year-old influencer on a beach in the Maldives who's got nothing of a life like yours, has no, you know, doesn't even compare. But I think you can really use that in a really inspiring way when it's done in the right way, and you're in a really helpful, like inspiring group of other women who want the
Yeah,
same.
I think it shows you what's possible because they're
Yeah.
real people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they've probably, even though they've probably got different goals where the health's concerned and the mindset is, but they're still wanting to improve themselves. So when you enter a group, I mean, neuroscience backs the whole peer group and mirror neurons, you're more likely to achieve if you're around a group of people that are on the same path as you, or slightly the same path. So I scream about peer groups and watching who you're around.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it is. I think it's that thing. Like I have been in some, even like when you're like talking about groups, like friendships, situations in the past that have just been the wrong. It's just the wrong environment. That's the only thing that I can describe it as like not going into too much detail with it. And it'll drain your life if you are around the wrong people, or just you're surrounded by people. And don't get me wrong, I think sometimes you can't get out of them situations. Like if you're married into certain like situations and family and people that you wouldn't necessarily choose to be around. But I think whole life is that, and you have no outlet for it. I just think you can become such a shell of your former self. And I find this now, again, quite a controversial thing. And I always get someone chirping up going, hang on a minute when I say something like this. I think slimming clubs as well. It's like the same kind of thing. And you'll always get someone who chirps up and say, well, it works for me. But how did like what worked? So again, it's that thing of taking up less space in the world. But for me, a lot of slimming clubs are based around like you've constantly got to go back to this thing. You're surrounded by people who are trying to cheat the system. It's not like productive, conducive. It's not like anything that's propelling you forwards into a better self, like achieving more and all that kind of thing. And I think we just really take for granted the groups that we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
That we feel like we should do because that's what everybody else is doing. So I should maybe I go to a slimming group next. Is this what I do? Do you know that I see that a lot with the women that I coach? They've spent years in slimming groups. When we look at it and like tot up how long they've spent in and out of slimming clubs and things like that, years and years and years, sometimes like 10 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, I'm glad you mentioned swimming clubs because I'm not a big fan. And I know you deal with like emotional eating as well. And I was going to ask you, it's about that looping thing again. Now, you normally find when people go on fad diets, it means cutting all the nice stuff out, you know, the nice stuff that we actually enjoy. And you're eating your broccoli and burpees. That's normally when people will fail and start emotionally eating because the brain gets FOMO. So if you tell your brain that you can't have something ever again, guess what it wants? And then, I mean, I've got friends that will go on diet and then all of a sudden, like, they message me going, oh my God, I've ate 10 cakes, 3 Kit Kats and all this. And it's like, I've been emotionally eating, I've got myself stressed out. Do you find that with fad diets?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Like the amount of, again, like clients that I work with, and it's really funny because going through, when people talk about transformation, like there's the whole body transformation thing of like stripping as much body fat off your body as you possibly can and then having a photo at the end, but nobody really sees the aftermath of doing things just from that point of view and just for that purpose. Quite often after things like that, the cycle is absolutely massive. It's like, the way that I look at it is you've got different levels of goals. So you've got your accelerator goals, which if you want to, you want to lose some weight, you want to, whatever the thing is, you've got an accelerator goal. But then what we don't do is we don't ever come back to what I would call baseline. Nobody really knows what the baseline is. So it's like we're always up and down like this. So accelerating's fine, like, push on, achieve, accelerate. But it once you've done that, it's almost like coming back down to totally off the wagon, totally don't know whether I'm coming or going, totally back in old patterns with food, who I am, my self-worth, all of that stuff, because it's all interlinked. Like the emotional eating side of it isn't just crying into your Ben and Jerry's. It's like an interlinked process with self-worth and how we relate to food. But it's like coming back to this baseline. And I think the problem is, and I do think this is more of a woman thing than a man thing.
Yeah.
But I think we don't know our own hunger signals. We don't know our natural eating patterns. We don't know how we should feel hormonally when we're in these massive cycles and these massive up and downs of like on the wagon, off the wagon, fad diet. It's almost like that middle ground for a lot of people is non-existent, and we don't know how to feel that anymore. Like, just your normal natural hunger signals, how you should be feeling around food. And this is what I teach to my clients, is like getting back to that, because we talk about lifestyle all the time, don't we? Like, I want a healthy lifestyle, or I just want to be able to find balance, or I just want to be able to find, and I think this absolutely is one of the main problems, is that so many of us, and this has been going on for a long time, this has been going on for years, like we are taught that we need to do this like quick thing, and once we've done the quick thing, then we'll be where we want to be and all these problems will go away. But it doesn't work like that. It's like, if you've got old patterns, it's like the pattern disruptive emotional eating. It's again coming back to like the physiological stuff of your normal hunger signals. Like, so many women that I work with, they don't even know what they feel like anymore. They don't know what they are. So I think it's so interlinked, but there's a definite correlation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I coached a lady. I can't remember. When I say the word, you'll know which swimming club it is. But she was counting sins.
Oh yes.
And like food, and I was like, why have they called them that? It's like automatically, it's like sins, food, bad. Like, what are you teaching your brain?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's just like horrific.
It's crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. They try and pass it off that they call these foods synergy foods, which is why it's S-what, but it didn't originally start there. And obviously just saying the word, it's like you said, that language is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even saying that word and even calling something a sin, the connotation and the subconscious patterning and that your brain conjures up to that and everything else with it. It's interesting. Do you find as well, like from a coaching perspective, it's almost like we know this stuff so we can recognize it, but there's so many people wandering around in just the subconscious, like stuck in these patterns, the language patterns, that just everything that comes with it, that people just don't realize that. And it's sad, because you just want to go, yeah, but it's this.
So a lot of work I do, it is working with people with the subconscious, because at the end of the day, 95% of our day is run by our subconscious and repetitive behaviors. So I get people to it's about becoming self-aware.
100%.
Because self-aware in itself is absolutely massive. Unfortunately, it's like stripping you naked and you've lost all your excuses, and like you've been like a light shining on you and everything. But
it's horrible, isn't it? Like,
yeah. It's like, oh my god, I've been doing this for years and now stupid. But it's that, and getting people to see it from a different way.
Yeah.
Because I believe, going back to society again, I mean, I believe that a lot of people think it's hard work to be healthy. So you'll hear a lot of people, especially around food,
Mm,
while healthy food's more expensive. I hear that all the time.
yeah.
So it's all like men and women. It's hard work to be healthy.
Mm.
I believe it's hard work to be unhealthy.
Oh, 1,000,000%. Million, I
Yeah,
totally agree. Totally agree. And I think even like seeing that in clients as well, I think we do overcomplicate the process. And I
yeah,
see this in clients all of the time who overcomplicate the process, who, and again, it's coming back to what you said earlier about like limiting beliefs, but also the stories that you're telling yourself as well about how hard something is, or how hard it is to be healthy, or I'm not someone who can do them things. So I've worked with a lot of women um who interestingly, like they've been what they would consider like bad at sport at school. So
yeah,
never in a million years step foot into, and they're still carrying this story around with them because they weren't like inclusive. So they weren't like, I remember when I were at school, it was like if you, and I do think it's different now, just the experiences that I've had with high schools. Um, but at the time, like if you weren't good at sport, you weren't included. It was like, oh, go and sit out. It was like you knew about it if
yeah,
you weren't sporty or you weren't. And there's so many women that I work with who have been in some way or other, for example, like feel a bit humiliated, or they knew like I'm really not sporty, I can't do this. And it's like they won't even step foot into, or it's taken a lot to step foot into a gym or to reach out for help or do something because they're carrying these stories around with them still. And you can apply that
yeah,
to anything really. Food, like I am not someone who, I'm especially genetics. I hear that a lot. Like, my mum were built like this, or this it's a family thing. We're all, and it's like these stories that we carry around with us that aren't even our stories. I find that a lot, which I find really, really interesting to unpick and unpack for people. And I think that's the thing sometimes that we get the biggest transformation from, in the
yeah,
way we don't even know that we are getting them. Do you know, like even getting a client to come into the gym or they start a new training program, and it's almost like bit by bit they can see that, oh, I can do that, or I didn't think I'd be able to do that and not feel that way, but I've done that. And it's almost like step by step. I talk about it in a way of having a confidence tower, and it's almost like you've got just bricks all over the floor, and like you're building your confidence tower brick, but it
yeah,
is literally brick by brick, and overcoming something and seeing that you can do something, and seeing that that old story that I used to have about myself, it's a past story, if that
yeah,
ever went through at.
yeah. I mean, the only way to gain confidence, you only do it gain confidence when you're actually doing something.
Yeah,
I
100%.
I hear a lot of people say, well, I haven't got the confidence to do that. Well, you're not going to, because you're not doing it yet. So how are you supposed to be confident in it? Um, but you hear that a lot about the gym, like
Yeah,
hearing I haven't got the confidence to go to the gym.
yeah.
Again, that's a perception thing, isn't it? Because a lot of people go, oh, everybody in that gym's like really healthy. They
Mm,
probably are, but when they started, they weren't.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. Do you know what I
Yeah,
think some of it is as well? And I always find this really, again, another turning point is like even rocking up to the gym, if you're not very confident in going in the gym, it's almost like, or going to a class for the first time, or even like I've had clients who have been terrified of going for not so much a walk, but like they really want to start doing like a little jog outside, and they're terrified of running in public and people seeing them. And it's this thing that all eyes are on me sometimes.
yeah,
And even I've had clients as well, interestingly, who it hasn't necessarily been, or some of it has, like going in the gym and knowing what to do and looking stupid and thinking, oh my God, everyone else knows what they're doing and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm wandering around not knowing what I'm doing. But also like even going into the gym, of like the process of, how do I get through the gym doors? Like, do I put a code in? Do I need a foot? And these are things that I've been in gyms since I was about 14. So the things that I totally take for granted. And it wasn't until I started having these really in-depth conversations with people that sometimes it's the logistics of even these things. Because like we just take it for granted. If you've been in the gym before, you've been in for a long time, you don't even think
mm-hmm.
about these things or some of these barriers. But I think a lot of it is that thing of, we feel, or people feel silly, or that they're not going to know what to do and everyone's looking at them, and like the humiliation thing.
Yeah,
a lot of it is that for people. And once you've got over that little like first hump of I can get through the door, I know what I'm doing, do you know, and you've got like a program and you've got a plan. And I think this is why I think a lot of my clients have the success that they have, because they know exactly what to do. It's not like they don't have to go and figure all of this out. It's almost like you're starting at this point and then building from there on that. It's not like little step forward and then I've got to, you know, take 10 steps back and no, I can't do that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting process for people. But also, I think it's important that people understand that they're not on their own with this. Like you feel stupid, don't you? And the amount of people that I speak to and they you know, feel like, for want of a better word, a bit of a dick. But it's not. It's like so common. It's just people don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. So are you noticing when you work with these ladies with the health, fitness and the mindset, I mean, you do the complete package, which is amazing, by the way. Do you find they're more empowered with their lives? Do you find that they're more kind of driven but calmer?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So what I find really interesting is because we do a lot of identity work and self work alongside the other like wellness stuff, like your typical wellness stuff. Obviously, we go through like the nutrition stuff, like physical training, or all of that, and also like obviously the mindset stuff and everything that we do there. A lot of it is identity stuff and bringing you back to yourself and what that is and what that looks like what are your values right now. And what I found with a lot of this is there's so many women who are living by other people's values, and this is why they shit. So once we've done this work, and in a case of like sometimes it can be as little as 4 weeks of just having these light bulbs, so many other areas of their lives improve. It's like, you know, these women who've left the jobs that they've just never even contemplated leaving until we've done this work, and then they're like, this is why I don't want to be here anymore. Or they've changed things, or the relationships have improved, or they're doing more with the kid. Do you know, it's so amazing to see that it's not just a case of, oh yes, going in the gym. Like there's so many other areas of your life, and I think that is something that improves massively when you start working on yourself, and when you start filling your cup back up, and you know what it is that you want, who you want in your life, what you're willing to almost have like boundaries with. Like the amount of women that I work with, they've just no boundaries with anything. But again, it comes back to that self-awareness thing sometimes. Like we don't even know that sometimes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've been in that situation before where my boundaries have been like elastic bands until I became self-aware. So we're all guilty of that.
Same, absolutely. And when I look back to like some things in the past, and I think, oh my God. But we all, you know, we've got to hit that level of self-awareness. But it is that's the biggest thing that I love about it, is seeing all of these other areas like level up in the way that, and it's different for everybody because people want different things. It'd be ridiculous of me to say to somebody, well, I want this, so you should want it as well. And I think that's the beauty of it, of allowing these women to sort of flourish and take the lead in what it is that they want, and sort of stand by the side and help them to do that as well. So it is a really empowering process. I think when you combine everything together, it's really empowering, and I love seeing it play out as well.
I love that. So your coaching programs, tell me about your coaching programs, how you do them, how it works.
So I tend to work one-to-one with clients in a program that is under the Liberated Woman method. That's what it's called. And we work together initially for 12 weeks. Now, some of the clients that I have got, so one client I'm thinking of in particular, I've actually coached her for 7 years with no breaks. So she's like never had any time off. She's never had any, but as a typical general like program, a 12-week program. So what happens is we overhaul everything. We do a really in-depth audit of every individual client, of like their past relationship with food, where they are now, what the issues are. It's just so we can get to the intricacies more than anything of what's actually going on for that person. Because what I was noticing, and you'll probably resonate with this in like the people that you work with as well, quick fix culture is absolutely everywhere. So you can go and do a 6-week shred, you can go and do like a 4-week something or other, or a, you know, all of these quick things, but they're not actually solving the problems, but I wanted to create something that was still fast, that you could still have like massive light bulbs with big transformation in like a
Yeah.
12 period, but it was like really, really life changing at the same time. So that's what we work on basically. Each week has an individual week where we're working on something at an identity level. There's some like rapid transformation therapy in there, and because it's one-to-one, it's the support level. I mean, from a business perspective, and I have people say this to me all the time, like, you should make it a group program. I love the one-to-one stuff, and I think you get so
Yes.
more out of, for me anyway, I get so much more out of a client and having that one-to-one relationship with them.
Yeah.
Or from a business perspective, yeah, it'd be, probably far more lucrative to bang everyone in a massive group and all of that, but it's the results that, and the light bulbs that I want for people, and the actual transformation for that. So that's
Yeah.
basically.
I like that. I like that. Right. One last question for you. Everybody struggles with this.
Oh God, go on.
Charlotte,
Yeah.
tell me 3 good things about yourself.
Oh my God. 3 good things about myself. I think, well, I don't know, sometimes this can be a bad thing actually, but I'm going to go with good. I like it about myself. I'm very intuitive. So
Right.
if something isn't right, there's something going on, there's something, somebody is like a bit off, or they're not feel like, I will be usually the first person to know about the thing that is going on, and that something just isn't like, what is this?
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, I mostly do. Mostly do. It's been a bit of a hindrance sometimes. Something you just think, oh God, why have I noticed that? Why does that have to be me?
You know what it is, mate? It's because you're self-aware. Because I know
No,
exactly what you mean.
help but hindrance.
Yeah.
Another good thing about me. Oh my gosh, I was not prepared for this question.
No, nobody ever is. It always stumps everybody.
I think I'm very good at recognizing when I need to fill my own cup up.
Yeah.
I think that is another good thing. And I can notice when my energy is depleting as well, only from the perspective of, I know when I'm being crabby with other people.
Yeah.
I know when I can, recognize that my relationships are taking a bit of a turn. I can see it in other people. So I think that's another.
Yeah.
I can top myself, because I think it's a really underutilized tool to have as well. I think so many of us, and I have been again like that in the past, where haven't been able to recognize it, and I have just sabotaged things. I've gone through my life like just
blaming everybody else for making you like be snappy. Yeah.
Third good thing. I'm gonna have to write a list after this, because I'm like, I should just bang these out. What if I'm gonna write a good list? Third good thing. I'm really good at baking cakes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, love a little bit of a baking.
I'm gonna set it as a bit of a goal next year to do more baking.
Oh yes, definitely do.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. Right, so if people want to find you, where can they find you on social media? We will put the links up as well, but
all over the place. So I am on Facebook, both personal and business page, which is just my name, Charlotte De Curtis, and then Instagram as well, which is either my name or my handle, which has been my handle forever, for about 10 years.
I love this handle. What is it?
Lottie too hot, eh? Yeah. I just don't have it in me to change it, and it doesn't match anything either. It doesn't match like my Facebook business. I'm not changing it. It's staying.
Yeah, you like it, and I love it.
I like it, so it's staying. But yeah, so I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I also have a website as well, which is charlottedecurtis.com or liberatewomanmethod.com.
Great. Well, thank you for being such a fantastic guest. I can highly recommend it to any woman who just like wants to start 2025 and go, I just want to get an handle on my health and my fitness and my mindset. I highly recommend Charlotte. So thank you, my lovely, for a fantastic chat. See you soon, mate.
Soon. Bye-bye.